Hey, I'm Brandon Holmes, CEO of United Energy. I went from living in a foreclosed home and lost everything with my wife at age 26 and our kids, to building back my life, net worth in the millions of dollars, a couple of businesses worth over millions of dollars, and doing it all from hard work and grit and determination and knocking doors. And that makes me one of the passionate few. So my thoughts of the interview today were, I've been interviewed about 6 times on these podcasts, and that was probably one of the most sincere, well put together, thought out questions and interviews that I've ever had the pleasure of being involved in. Especially means a lot coming from somebody that I've actually hustled with on the doors, going from himself not having any money to becoming super successful and knowing that about him myself. So he is the passionate few. So what I hope people get out of this is just a sheer desire to know that hard work is the only main ingredient in any kind of real wealth. That if you want it, you got to go get it. And any kind of obstacle that falls in your way is just an experience to strengthen you to go get what you really want in life. And that's already been created for you. You just got to go get it.
Welcome to this episode of The Passionate Few. Today we have on a guest that many of you guys will be blown away to find out was actually not only my sales manager back in the day, about 5 years ago, taught me a lot of what I know about sales, laid the foundation for me starting The Passionate Few, but he's also the CEO of United Energy. He's a good friend of mine, and he's a guy who's probably knocked almost 250,000 doors and overseen hundreds of sales reps, if not thousands, generating tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in the solar industry. He is a man who needs no introduction, none other than Brandon Holmes. Thanks so much for being on the show today, Brandon.
Glad to be here, man.
So let's get right into it, man. I know we have a good relationship, good friendship going back a couple years now. But for the audience that may not know who you are, can you share a little bit about what you do as the CEO of United Energy, why you're passionate about solar, and kind of what you do now before we get into your childhood?
Yeah, man. So, solar is that industry where you're always out looking for something that can change the world, right? Something that you can have full purpose in your heart and your mind, your daily activities that will motivate you when it gets hard. And I feel like what we do at United Energy, and even in solar in general, from changing how the world produces its power and its electricity. I mean, we have a serious problem with what we're dealing with, how the world consumes energy and creates electricity, and we're solving that problem. And a step further, we're gonna get into this, but what I truly love about what we do is we train young men and women how to become the best versions of themselves, and solar has to be that vehicle. So that's what we do.
Dude,
man.
I love that. Now, take me back to your childhood, because I know, when I used to work for you in solar, we'd hear a lot of the stories, we'd learn a lot about your journey, but people might see you now as, the successful guy. You've helped tons of people, obviously companies that have been involved in the hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, if not more. But take me back. Where was Brandon Holmes, growing up? Did you aspire to be an entrepreneur? Did you always have this knack for sales and success, or did you kind of struggle early on? Take me back to kind of your childhood and where all that began for you.
Yeah, man, lots of struggles, as everyone has. But I feel like the question being, was I always an entrepreneur? I think you're a product of your environment, right? And growing up, my dad was an entrepreneur. And when I was first born, actually, I love being here in Cali. I love being here on the ocean. The first 5 years of my life, we were in Santa Barbara, California. And my dad was out trying to find his way, and we were broke, like dead broke. And you know that feeling when you're hungry? Like you're hungry, you haven't eaten for a long time? Like that feeling is how I remember a lot of my childhood. And my pops was into gold trading, and then that went down. And we actually, we didn't have a home. He had a buddy who was a banker. And so we lived and moved into foreclosed home to foreclosed home to foreclosed home. We didn't have a car. And so it was rough. Like it was rough growing up. But then the times changed, and my dad came up with this idea of how to become a corporate engineer. Termed this idea, how to go into a business, and now it's just like a consultant. But he went into businesses, changed them, made them profitable, And he wrote a book about it, put his home number in the back of the book. Book sold almost 1 million copies. And the trick was everyone that bought the book called that home number in the back cover. This was back in the 80s, early 80s. And he would call them back and provide coaching. And the coaching industry was born. My dad, Doug Holmes, is kind of known as the founder of coaching. And over the next 10 years, we went from having nothing to, having a very nice life. And being an entrepreneur in an industry, starting an entirely new industry, ups and downs, companies split. We lost everything 3 or 4 times growing up. I went to 7 schools before I was in junior high, a couple different states. And so being gypsy-like, transient, son of an entrepreneur. One time, I think this is a good story that defines me, was we had gone through something where, there was some issues with the business and we weren't able to make any money. And to play basketball, I love basketball. To play basketball, I had to pay for my own sports, pay for my own shoes. And the new Jordan 11s had just come out, the Concords, right?
How old were you at this time?
12. And I went out and I got a paper route so that I could pay my way to play basketball. And I had a picture of those Concords right there every morning. I wake up at 4:30 a.m. I'd fold my papers, had about 1,000 papers, and then I'd go deliver them, and then I'd go to basketball practice or volleyball practice. And I did that every day until I was about 18 years old. And that instilled in me a desire to want to go get a goal, those shoes, and to do the things I wanted to do, and the liberty and the freedom that came from being my own man and making my own money and paying my own way. And that was something that was big in my household. And my pops, he kind of ran our home like a business.
Yeah.
I mean, they were doing, $20 million a year in revenue. And so when he come home, and I didn't see him a lot, but when he did come home, like if we didn't have our chores done, me and my brother Chris, we got fired from our house. Straight up.
Yeah.
Like, we'd get fired.
Yeah.
We'd have to do overtime to get back in and stuff. So it was I loved my childhood. I loved it. I loved hustling. I look back, I love being hungry. I'm just really grateful for all those experiences.
Dude, that's powerful. What was the name of your pop's book?
It was 0 to 8,000 in 4 days.
And as soon as that blew up and it changed your guys' finances, how old were you at that time?
Between 2 and 5 years old.
Okay, cool.
So young.
So you were pretty young at that point. So did you see that and then go, I want to be an entrepreneur, or was it kind of just the culture of the household that bred you more than anything?
Culture.
Really?
I just didn't even, like I said, my dad wasn't around a lot. So I'd always wonder where dad is. And I just knew that he was hustling. And that just came out with me and my brother Chris.
Yeah.
There's 5 boys in my family, me and Chris, and we're about 2 years apart. Then an 8-year gap to my brother Chad, and then another 8-year gap to my 2 youngest brothers, Toby, Dax, and they're about a year apart. So there's 3 families, right? Well, it's interesting to see, me and Chris came up in the struggle era of our family, right? And me and Chris, we both still knock doors to this day. We still hustle. And then Chad, he was raised in what I call the silver spoon era, where my dad had sold the business and things were good. My dad was around a lot.
Yeah.
And to watch his mentality with how he works. And he's super intelligent, very smart, runs some, Google companies. I mean, really, really intelligent. And then my younger 2 brothers, they kind of get my dad in this grandpa phase where it's more retirement phase, right? So it's just interesting to watch the dynamics of how my brothers work and think and
the evolution of all that.
Yeah, the product of the environment.
Talk to me also about, you said your pops used to work with some of the biggest names in personal development, helping them with their coaching programs. Can you share a little bit about some crazy experiences? I know you mentioned that you used to meet Tony Robbins when you were a teenager and stuff like that. What was that like for you as a kid? Again,
man, I great blessings. Every experience in my life has been such a great experience. And that's in life, man, right? I look back at being super poor when me and my mom had nothing, and we would walk to the beach and just finding seashells and gluing them together and making little figurines like that. That was such a great experience, but people would look at that and be like, man, life sucked, right? But taking those and being like, man, that was amazing. That's something that's inside of the individuals that I found will either make someone successful or someone be super consumerish and fearful, right? But these stories, I think, I remember being around this 14-year-old age, and we went out to Hawaii. We stayed at Tony Robbins' house. Super great guy. Tony's, I mean, you never know how big Tony Robbins' hands are till you shake his hand, right?
Yeah.
I know you met him, right?
Yeah.
I remember being 14, grabbing that hand, being like, that guy's a giant, right?
Yeah.
But his heart is as big as his hands, and he had to stay at his home.
Wow.
And I got to go do a fire walk.
Yes.
We got to be a special guest and I climbed that pole and jumped to the trapeze thing.
Yeah.
And so those experiences as a 14-year-old are something that really helped shape my life. More importantly, he worked with Zig Ziglar, Dennis Waitley, some of those, Charles Givens, some of the big names in the 80s, still big today, and Stephen Covey. And I got to know these men on a personal level, right? A little bit different than most people see them or interact with them, but I got to see them behind closed doors. And a lot of people aren't who they say they are, right? You learn that there's a facade, and some of these people are who they are. But the biggest takeaway for me was I am who I am all the time. I mean, me and my wife actually get into this little fight sometimes where she's not too big on PDA, and I'm big on PDA. And my reasoning is that if we're doing this behind closed doors, I'm doing this at the park bench, and that's just how I roll. Like, you'll always know who I am. You'll see me coming a mile away, but this is who I am, right? If I'm not kissing you, it means I'm not kissing you and behind closed doors, right? So, and I understand the other perspective too, but that's kind of why I've adopted that dogma in my life is I just don't enjoy when people aren't who they say they are anytime, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the congruency. Yeah,
absolutely.
Wanting to be authentic and congruent. Okay, so then talk to me a little bit how you got into knocking doors, because that's how we connected. And I remember the first time, I started working for you, I went in and I was looking for a sales opportunity. I had met a guy at a Tony Robbins seminar, ironically, who wrote down his income, and I was blown away at his income. It was like multiple six figures. And I asked him how old he was. He told me he was like 25 or 26. And like my goal at the time was like 50 grand a year. I was like, man, if I could make 50 grand a year, I'm set. And this guy was making close to that, in a month or two. And he had told me he worked for the solar company. I got in touch. That's how I connected with you. And I remember right away going there and being blown away at your experience in solar, how you were helping so many people, door knockers, sales reps, not only better themselves in their sales and income, but just better their life, build these skills. So talk to me about how you got involved with the door-to-door world and the roller coaster that must have been, right? Because before you started making a great income, I'm sure it must have been rough, right? Getting married relatively young and trying to provide a life and all that, knocking doors and trying to figure out how to get that group. So take me back to that. When did you start knocking doors and how did that begin for you?
Oh man, so door knocking started for me back, part of who I am is when we turn 19 in my religion, we go out and we do a mission trip for 2 years. And
LDS, right?
LDS, yep.
Correct.
And that's where I started to learn the power of door to door. And a lot of guys hated it. Like, even as a missionary, it doesn't matter what you're not. If you're knocking a door, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We were talking before.
Yes.
The pit in your stomach,
yeah.
The interaction, the cold interaction with someone, am I interrupting, or all those thoughts, right? Well, I learned I actually really enjoyed it. And it wasn't that the pit ever goes away, but I just learned how to manage it. And I always like a challenge. So can I get this person to laugh within the first 5 seconds? Seemed to be the little game I'd play in my head. And I learned if I could get them to laugh in 5 seconds or even smile, that they were going to let me in, or they would listen to me on a human level, not just whatever my message was, right? So I ended up, there's a couple guys in the mission, some of my friends and good partners, Casey Baugh, Jed Wentel, we're good for these names. So we all did our mission trips together. We came back as college roommates. And a couple back in 2003, 2004 in Utah, they call it the Happy Valley, where there's a couple colleges where a lot of these returned missionaries go. Well, a couple guys started to decide, hey, there's a market here where you get a lot of these returned missionaries who've knocked doors. Let's see if we can go give them Dish Network or solar systems or alarm
Right.
systems. Let's go get these guys to go knock doors. They've had 2 years of training.
And if you could sell God, you could sell anything, right?
If you sell Jesus, you can sell anybody. That's for sure, right? So it was, and if you think about this idea, I'm sure you're familiar with like Malcolm Gladwell, this idea of outliers. You go back in our industry right now and you say, there's a few guys that have done really, really well, right? That are on certain levels of this, and they all have some very similar outlying traits, right? Most of us did these mission trips. Most of us went to school in this happy valley in the early 2000s. Most of us, I mean, there's just some things that allow us to have been in this moment.
Common denominators, yeah.
That turned out to be a huge blessing for us. Now, some guys didn't take the opportunity, but those of us that did, you know, and that's what led us here, was we started, a company came and approached us. A guy named Doug Robinson, he's actually the CEO of a company called Legacy right now. They do solar. I've worked with Doug, and we've had some fun synergies recently. And so reached out to a friend, myself and Casey Baugh, and we went and started to sell Dish Network door to door. Our first summer we went out there, we recruited a couple hundred guys just off this idea that we were going to go make, you know, more than $5,000 in the summer, and went out there and made like 20 grand, right? Like quadrupled our goals, and we were thinking we were so ballers at that point, right?
How old were you at that time?
21.
21.
Yeah, 21. And I didn't think I wanted to be a door-to-door salesman. No one, as a little kid, grows up saying, I want to be a door-to-door salesman when I grow up, right? Even after that first summer, I'm like, I'm never doing this again. Yeah. That was so bad. And anyone that knocks doors knows exactly what I'm talking about. You're like, I'm never doing that again. And then I went and worked at a mortgage company about private lending. I did some investing and got good at it, and worked with a couple guys, and we built this little business up. And the summer came around again, and my buddies were going, and we had recruited guys. So I went out again and made 70 grand that summer and got a pop, came back to my real job. And that ended up going sideways due to 2007. The mortgage world, the lending world turned upside down. And I got caught in the middle of it. We lost our home. We foreclosed on our home. We had to, went through some bankruptcy proceedings. I mean, it just put some judgments on us. And so I lost everything.
You were married at this time?
We were married. We had 2 kids, and we lost everything. And I remember waking up at not even knowing if I went to sleep or not, and just tears coming down my face, wondering what a failure I was, right? And it feels like it was a lot bigger than it was, but it got so bad that when I got kicked out of our home, me and my brother, shout out Chris, we drove back to my house, snuck in, took the refrigerator, took out all the light bulbs, and sold it on KSL, which is like a Craigslist type thing, just so I could go buy groceries. I don't tell that story too often, but that was a really hard time in my life to look at my wife and kids and say, like, you know, I need to go do something. I ended up contacting Casey, who had stayed in it, and saying, hey man, I know I could go make 50 to 70 grand in a couple months quick. Let's reunite. So we did, and went out to Texas, and we went and sold, and ended up that summer doing extremely well. We made about $230,000 that year.
Do you think it's because of the pressure you were under? Like
Absolutely.
That motivation?
I had creditors calling me from the business side. I'm not even getting into the details of this, but creditors from the business side, personal judgments, the foreclosure. I mean, I had a judgment for $180,000 stuck on my credit, and my goal was to go make enough money that I could satisfy that debt. I came up nowadays.
So your goal was to be broke, not in debt.
That's right.
Just even, yeah.
Let's flatline the sucker, right? The year I grew up was, bankruptcy was bad, which it's not like smiled upon, but you don't do it, right? also you pay your debts in full. That was a big deal. And I went out, and in 2 years, I had paid off that judgment and those debts in full, and they're satisfied. I mean, that for me was such an accomplishment, and that was just the tip of the iceberg. What we were also building and growing on the backside too was awesome, and you know what I'm saying, like it turned out to be really good. So the doors turned out to be a tool to get me through a hard time. I went back to it, and it ended up being this amazing career for me.
How old were you when you were at that rock bottom, when you were married to your wife, 2 kids, lost the house?
2006, so I mean 25, I think, 26, Yep.
So you're 25, 26, rock bottom, and then you get back in knocking doors. And for people who maybe are not familiar with knocking doors, can you give people context as to the kind of business model or what it's like? Because a lot of people have no idea the potential for door knockers. You know, a lot of them dismiss them as these people that just bother them at the door or whatever. But can you kind of humanize that for people who might not know what the life of a door knocker is, particularly a successful one? Could you just give some context on that?
It depends the level of success you want to be, right? And that's, I think, is unique about our industry is we can take people part-time, like I was, trying to get back on my feet, use it as an instrument to get the money back, or get a jump start. A lot of guys do it, gals do it through college to pay their tuition. And then now it's turning into this professional career where people take this seriously, put in some major hours and get some major results. One of the things that changed for me, I'm gonna tell you 2 experiences about humanizing this. It was the second year I'd come back to the doors, and you know, I had just made, like I said, I'd made over 250,000 2 years in a row, so I'm getting back, right? That's about the income level I was making when I lost everything. So now I'm kind of back, paid the debts, we're good, and now I'm like, okay, let's put the gas on this thing. I was at my neighborhood barbecue, and I'm 27 years old. In my neighborhood, there was a bunch of doctors and optometrists and real estate people, and we were going around saying what we did for a living, like an introduction to the neighborhood thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not supposed to be living in this neighborhood. Like,
Right.
I'm too young, I don't have an education or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And everyone's going around saying what they do for their living. And I was like racking my brain, what should I say? Should I say I'm a door-to-door salesman? How do I say that? Like, I'm a professional canvasser of all things. Like, I just didn't know what to say. So it came to me, and I just owned it, right? I just said, I'm a professional door-to-door salesman. And everyone's like, cool. And they like went on to the next guy. No big deal. But for me, that verbal commitment of who I am and what I am doing made me own it to the point where I doubled my income that next year. And that was the pivotal moment where I said, I'm good to own who I am and what I'm doing. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go take this thing and go make $1 million with it. And so that was like that pivotal moment where you can do it as a part-time or take it as a professional career. Second story, my father-in-law is a super successful surgeon. He's kind of on the retirement side now, but this guy has invented some procedures, and he doesn't like me to share who he is or what he's accomplished, but let's just say this guy, very, very accomplished in his field. I had an opportunity I followed him one day where I woke up when he did, when we were staying at their home. He took me to his hospital. I did the rounds. I watched how he put in his time as a professional surgeon. And I had this idea as I was sitting there, like going through my journaling, and I thought to myself, if I put in the same time that he did into my craft, could I make the same amount of money? And I decided I was going to do that. I decided that I was going to invest as much time into my craft as he did into the surgeries. And the results throughout the last 10 years have been a blessing, that anything you put your mind to and anything you decide, hey, I'm going to go give my whole heart to this thing, you can make over $1 million at anything you choose to do that you want to put your heart into. And so that's been another great lesson that I've learned, that these guys, instead of it just being these guys pestering me on the doors, You have no, I mean, I'll knock the door, sell it, walk around the corner and hop in my i8 and drive to my $1 million home, and my
Yeah.
kids are in private school, and these people just think I'm trying to get through college, you know?
Yeah. No, that's crazy. Were you good at sales door to door, like right off the bat, or did
No.
you kind of struggle with it? I mean, take me back to do you remember your first couple doors, your first day knocking doors? What was that like?
Yeah, I bageled, we call it bagling. I zeroed for 2 weeks straight.
Yeah.
And I remember having recruited all of these guys at these, like, we do root beer float parties at our, like, poker nights, right, in our college dorm room, me and Casey recruiting these guys. And I'd recruited so many people that I went out and I didn't sell anything. And I'm being like, oh, I brought all these people into this thing and I can't even sell it. Like, so I remember, like, I just decided to get super serious about commitment to, again, study my craft. I'm gonna read all these books, Psychology of Selling, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, Secrets of Closing the Sale. Like, I'm gonna go learn to sell. And after 3 days of zeroing, I finally sold one. And I was like, oh, and as soon as I sold that one, I sold 5 that day. It was just like that mental block, right?
Just clicked, yeah.
Yep. Another funny story. So then I went to do mortgages, then I came back, right? My comeback. Well, I moved my family to Texas. That was when I bageled or zeroed for 2 weeks. And we had moved, I didn't have a home, the bank had taken it anyway, but we moved down to Texas. I'm there with my family. I go out and I bageled for 2 weeks. And I remember going back to the apartment, and if my wife was everything to me at the point, because I wanted to quit. Like, I'm gonna go get a job as a pizza delivery. I have to pay the bills, right? I'm just gonna go, I don't know, I'll just go deliver pizzas. Seriously.
Yeah. Just a guaranteed income, yeah.
That was on the docket.
Instead of being 100% commission on the doors, yeah.
Yeah, correct. So when people bring this to me, I'm like, no, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're feeling. But so I 2 weeks, and my wife was like, you got this. Like, you got this. Like, this is who you are. Go do it. Go slay the dragon and go bring home the bacon. And after we had that talk, that next day I went and sold 3, sold 2, and I ended up those last 3 months of the summer being the #1 rookie in the company and doing really well, and brought home the bacon that year, so it was good.
It's wild. What about your schedule? I remember back in the day, you had this paper, like a photo of your schedule that you read, your $1 million schedule or whatever, your $250,000, whatever it was.
I have it framed on my desk right now.
Yeah,
I do.
I remember that. And it's still the same page that you wrote.
Same page.
So can you talk to people, because I think from all industries, all people watching this, men, women, any age, entrepreneurs, salespeople, whatever, could stand to benefit. But can you just itemize that schedule just so people get some context?
Sure.
Because I remember that, most guys would go out and knock doors, for a couple hours a day, 3-4 hours a day. But you'd get up like 7, 8 a.m., knock doors till 7, 8 at night. Like, you were all in. So can you just give us context as to what that winning routine schedule was?
Absolutely. Can I speak on some principles first?
Absolutely.
So I think there's this old adage that there was a young man who wanted to be successful, and he climbed all the way up to top of Mount Everest or whatever, right? And he went and met this guru, and he said, hey, how do I become successful? And the guru said, put a bullfrog on the side of your bed, and when you wake up in the morning, swallow the bullfrog. And the guy's like, you mean I hiked all the way up this mountain to get that load of shit as advice? Are you kidding me? I'm not doing that. Hikes back down, lives his life, not successful. Hits enough trials, loses enough cars and money and house, decides that he's going to get serious about this and says, fine, I'm going to do it. Puts the bullfrog by the side of his bed. He wakes up, swallows the bullfrog, does that for a while, and ends up being successful. People are like, well, what's the point of the story? It is that first thing in the morning when you wake up, get the hardest thing out of your way. Swallow your bullfrog. Get the hardest stuff done and just finish it, get it done, and then the rest of the day is pretty simple. I mean, what's harder than swallowing a bullfrog the rest of the day? It's not very hard, right?
Yeah.
Couple that with General Lee. I mean, I think it was Lincoln that said if Lee had fought for the North, the battle would have been won in a day. Lee actually, I mean, back then they were, almost contract soldiers, right? Which is another thing that is interesting. But so he has this quote that says, the battles are won in the general's tent.
I remember that, yes.
And in anything you do, you need to identify where your general's tent is. Mine happens to be in my bedroom at 7 a.m. in the morning, right? Now that I have kids and seasons of my life have changed, you need to adjust when that general's tent happens, but it has to happen first thing in the morning. That's your bullfrog, okay? So in the mornings, people call it power hour, people call it their holy time, whatever it is. But I have a will of life where I focus on spiritual, physical, mental, social, emotional, and spiritual, physical, social, emotional, and mental, And I never focus on financial. People are like, where's your financial? You don't focus on that. You master those 5 spokes of that wheel, and the financial one always takes care of itself, right? So I take 30 minutes, which is 2.5 hours, and I designate that time of 30 minutes to each of those parts of my life.
First thing in the morning.
First thing in the morning. So spiritual, I'm meditating. I am writing down things that I'm thankful for. I'm reading Holy Writ. I am communing with the higher power, whatever source you believe is out there. This is an important one because it doesn't matter what your religious affiliation is. It's not about religion, it's about spirituality. And I believe that we are, 2-part beings, being spiritual and physical. And if you don't believe that there's a higher power out there, whatever it is, it's everything to do with being humble. And in sales, it's easy to think that you're the end all be all. When money's flowing and you got millions of dollars and teams and things, and all of a sudden, like every morning to just check myself that I have breath. I can breathe, right? Like I am actually nothing. You go through something serious where an appendix explodes or a kid gets put on a life support, and all of a sudden, like nothing matters anymore. So putting yourself in check every day is very important for me, and I don't miss that. Physical, going to the gym, right? Any kind of resistance training, cardio, social, emotional, making sure I'm connecting with people, and not just surface connection, talking deep relationship building. I pick one individual a day where I will actually invest 30 minutes and really invest in that time, whether I'm calling one of my guys, or maybe it might be my daughter, I'm taking her to Starbucks and we have daddy-daughter time, but I'm socially connecting deeply. Mental, you've got all sorts of things from reading good books, doing any kind of, they got Luminosity, little apps that you can do, right? I always read random stuff from my craft to anything that will just help me be a more rounded individual. In door knocking, this one's big too because you've got to know a lot of shit. You've got to know a lot of shit because you're meeting people from everywhere. And if you can't relate to that individual, you won't have a lot to talk about. And then you feel pitchy and you feel like you're just there to sell something. But if I can connect with, it happens
Sports,
all the time.
Politics, countries, music,
all of it. I'll read something in the morning, and that day when I'm knocking, it'll literally be like this guy. I walk in, he's got like this shrine of like some country artist that I happen to like read about, and I'm like, oh, you like Austin country? Like, oh, is that Pat Green? Oh, you know Pat Green? Oh, of course I know Pat Green. Like, that's a serious conversation that actually happened, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my wife's from Texas. Oh, and now we're having a human experience, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not just a sales guy anymore. So that's super important to make sure. So making sure you spend those 2.5 hours mastering that will of life, fighting, swallowing that bullfrog, and prepping in the general's tent, that happens. It's got to happen. If I'm in the general's tent prepping for battle, and I'm getting ready to go knock that door, I'm gonna win. Another thing too that I do is I power up every day. Learn this from Tony, right? I will tell myself my affirmations. I have 10 affirmations that I tell myself. I love myself, and I say it 100 times, each of them 100 times. I'm awesome, I'm powerful, I will dominate the day, like these things. And I reiterate them over and over and over again. And then I write out my top 10. I write it out, pen and pad, old school. I feel like there's something about writing that will just make you internalize it on levels, like on a cellular level, that I feel like we've missed with our thumbs.
Like in your gut, in your soul, you feel the identity of it. Yeah,
That's right. And I might be way off on that, but you're asking me what I do, and I feel like that's a big thing. I write it out.
So you do gratitude with the 10, or what is it that you write on the
Yep. So, and you know, it's been fun with this, with the COVID thing. Again, another huge blessing.
Yeah.
What a blessing that this has been in everyone's lives. Like, not the disease, right? Not the virus, but the experiences that we've had to pivot, as everyone's had an opportunity to choose to pivot and how. And we've chosen, with my wife, hats off to her, like we created a whole new economy inside our home. We did.
Yeah.
It was really cool because we wanted our kids to learn cause and effect. It was like 3 days into it, we realized like we're just gonna watch movies the whole time, and like ungratitude started flowing. Like our kids were demanding that I went and picked up food. Like, Dad, go get me Five Guys. And I'm like, excuse you? We don't talk that way. Like, so we started attaching pennies. We got these jars, and everything they did had a penny, and they couldn't watch, like at the end of the week, they could buy their own videos or buy their media time, or buy things like a hamburger. Like when we go out on Friday as a family, or Saturday we go out for family night, if they wanted a hamburger and a milkshake, they had to go get their pennies that they had earned by quick obedience, like, and doing their chores, right? So we created this little ecosystem.
The same way your dad kind of created a business with you back in the day, right? Kind of came full circle.
That's how I learned it.
Yeah.
I literally, like, and me and my wife sat down, and a lot of it was her idea, but it was completely stuff my dad had done for us growing up, which again, I'm super grateful for. But having that ecosystem inside the homes turned out to be such a blessing for us. And it was fun to watch my son. The first time we went to Five Guys, he ordered a 2 patties, milkshake, and fries. Realized that his 15 pennies was going to get him all of that and only 5 minutes of media time when we went home and watched our movie together, because now I'm making my kids pay their pennies to watch the movie with our family, right? Well, he decides not to get the shake, just get a cup of water, only 1 patty, so that he can watch his full hour with us with his pennies. And to watch his brain like decide that.
Rationalize that process, yeah.
And then he goes, Dad, I'm gonna make more pennies and buy more media time next week. And I'm like, good job, right? To watch him do it. And then my daughter, same situation, right? She's in tears, like, Dad, you took away everything from me. She's gonna kill me if she sees this, right? But
how old is she?
She's 14, so she probably will. So maybe I take away her media pennies on, no, just kidding. So to watch 2 individuals handle something identical, but so drastic, right? One was such a freeing experience, one was such a bondage experience, that I just find that such a great human study too. But making sure that that gets done, those kind of things are implemented. We did that in the morning time, me and my wife. That was our power hour. We made sure that that was happening. And then we executed on that, so.
Dude, that's amazing. Now, also, I want to talk about you and your wife, because you guys have a beautiful type of love story, if you're comfortable talking about that. Can you just kind of share in 5 minutes or so, just because I think it's so super powerful for the audience. There's a lot of lessons in that. You and Liz have this amazing chemistry, this amazing story. Can you share with us like how that whole thing unfolded? Because I think it would be incredibly valuable to a lot of people watching or listening to this.
So you're never too young to start this. And this goes back to just my dad raising us. I remember being 7 years old and my dad sitting me down and saying, you know, what kind of wife? This was in response to all my friends were in a car talking about this girl was super cute, right, at the movie theater, right? And so that night he comes in my room and he said to me, he said, what kind of wife do you really want? And I'm like, I don't care, a pretty one, right? Like super young and shallow. And he goes, you can't expect anyone that you're not being yourself. If you want somebody as good, you need to be better than that. Like, you need to go make sure that the product, everything's product. You make sure that your product that you go to give to her is better than the product that you're receiving, or you're going to be left empty-handed, right?
Right.
So he told me, he said, prepare for your spouse now and pray for that individual. He said, you'll pray her into existence and into your life. And he promised me that. And I prayed every night. Every night I prayed for my wife. I didn't know who she was and what she would look for. And I'm going to get emotional a little bit, but as time went on, I started to envision what she looked like. It started to like develop in my brain. Whether or not this was my brain or a higher power, I've yet to draw the conclusion on all of this, and I hope as I get closer to this higher power that I will understand more, but this is an aspect of my life I seek after, right? So anyway, I'm praying, I'm trying to be a better individual for this person, and I was 17 years old, and I had a dream one night, and I was in like Disneyland, and I was walking down the little street, and I had a person on my shoulders, a little person. And I look, and in my dream, I can look over and I see that my wife is pushing a stroller, and I can't see her face, but I know it's my wife, and she's pushing a stroller, and there is a blue blanket draped over the stroller. So it's this woman pushing this boy. And again, if some people say they don't dream, or if you dream or whatever, like some things you can tell really clear, and some are just kind of fuzzy.
Blurry,
this was fuzzy, right? But I know it's a blue boy or blue blanket for a boy, and I know that's my wife, and I know that I have a little person on my shoulders, and I pick up this little person off my shoulders, and I look at her, and it's a little girl, and she has brown eyes, darker skin, brown hair, and it's in loose curls. And I'm blonde and blue and pretty white, right? So I know that's my daughter, though. And I woke up, I wrote that in my journal, and I held this super sacred. Like, it was so real to me, so real, right? Well, time goes on. I turn 19, I go on this mission trip, and I go to Oklahoma and Texas. And I am living in Anadarko, Oklahoma on the reservation with the Comanche and Kiowa and Apache and Delaware people, which is a whole other side of my life that is super special to me. I get asked to go 2 hours away and I'm in charge of about like 50 missionaries. And I got to take all of these missionaries to this Bible study where there's the youth from the state that come in Lawton, Oklahoma. It was this Bible study. And so I end up deciding not to go. And I remember waking up that morning of the event and literally being hit right in the face, and a voice says, "Go." And I'm looking around like, I hear a voice, "You need to go." So I end up calling my mission president, who's kind of like the CEO of the missionaries, right? I said, "Hey, I'm gonna go." He's like, "Oh, I actually knew you were going. I already slotted you there for it, so we're already expecting you to show up," which was kind of funny. So on my way there, we end up teaching, and my companion had MS, and so he couldn't run very well. And as we were walking, a Rottweiler gets loose and mauls him, draws on his hand and tears his arm up. I run over, I drop kick the dog. This is another story too, but and the owner comes out, grabs the dog, his hand is torn up. So we run him to we have a grandma out there, her name was Granny B. She was an old Delaware medicine woman. Anyway, she gets some peyote, puts it on there. We end up going to the hospital. They stitch it up, and we still make it in time to go to this thing. So there's other forces trying to like not get me to go to this Bible study, right? From a dog like attacking my buddy. We get there, I'm sitting there, and like it's super chaotic, right? There's blood on my shirts, and like we're like there.
They're at Bible study.
We're finally there, right? We get there. Yeah. And there's probably like 100 or 200 people in a theater room, like a play, an amphitheater, sorry.
Yeah.
And the youth start filing in, and my wife, her name's Liz. Liz walks in, and I turn and I see her, and time stood still. It stopped. And I turned to my companion, I said, "I'm gonna come back and marry that girl right there." I'm like, "That's my wife." He's like, "Shut up, no, it's not." I said, "That's my wife right there, I know it." And when I saw her, I kid you not, time stood still. And I knew it was my wife. And I didn't know where she was from. I didn't know where, and it covered like 2 states. Texas is a pretty big place. She ends up going.
And you're not from there, you have no familiarity with there, yeah.
I end up going back to the reservation. She goes to wherever she's from. I don't get her name, I don't get anything. 3 days later, my mission president calls me and says, hey, I need you to go be the zone leader down in Texas, or go be over the missionaries down there. Be there by Wednesday. I show up. I go to there. I go to the local meeting church worship home there, or church building there. We show up. I'm sitting in church, and she comes walking in. I'm in her city. My apartment is 2 miles from her house.
Total coincidence, yeah.
If you want to call it coincidence at this point, right?
Yeah.
So yes, I'm there, and I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. I go home, I call my mission president, and I'm like, Prez, you gotta move me out of here. He's like, why's that? I said, well, cause I saw this girl a week ago, and I think she's my wife. And he's like, have you talked to this woman before? I'm like, no. He's like, does she know you exist? I'm like, no. He's like, okay, Elder Holmes, you're getting ahead of yourself. He gave me some great advice. He says, you can't help it if a bird flies over your head, but you can definitely make sure it doesn't build a nest in your hair. Figure it out. And he hung up the phone. And I'm like, now what I'm not telling you is that as a missionary, you're not supposed to go on dates. You don't have any kind of like one-on-one interaction with any female or male of the opposite sex. Like, you are there to knock doors and preach Jesus, and that's it, right? So I'm there for a year of my mission, and I'm trying to avoid this gorgeous girl, right? And I end up becoming really good friends with her older brother, who he's married. He lives across town, and he has his own family.
Was that intentional on your part?
That's a tricky question.
Yeah.
So the true answer is no, but I obviously, he called me, so I got introduced to him. When he was 20 years old, he was the youngest millionaire account holder for Merrill Lynch. He's a stockbroker, super successful, and flies a jet. Like, he's got it going on. So you'd love to meet this guy. So we started talking money, and that's how our friendship started, was talking about business and everything. So he's like, hey, you should come over and talk to my family about Jesus. And anyway, so we hit it off really well. His wife started to pump me full of information and like gather information out of me about, hey, so where do you live from this school in Utah, and how far is your house from BYU? Because come to find out, she was going to go to BYU that next year, right?
Oh, wow.
So she got all this information, and it wasn't until like a day before I went home from a mission that I kind of realized that she even knew I existed. While on my mission, I'm sitting at the church house, and there's a bunch of women there, and we are we're doing a linger long, which is like after services, people come and like they talk and eat and whatever, right? Potluck. It's super easy to say potluck.
Yeah.
And I'm helping cut food, and Liz is there in the room, and someone asked me about my family. Like, hey, how many brothers, sisters do you have? Your mom, where are you from? Like, just to get to know me. And I start telling, hey, there's 5 boys in my family. Someone says, your poor mom, there's no girls. I said, well, crazy story. I had a dream when I was 17, and my firstborn's a little girl. They're like, what? That's crazy. It was such I knew it, right? And someone says, what do you mean? I said, well, I had this dream, this little girl, she was on my shoulders. I looked at her, and she had, brown hair, brown eyes, and her hair was in. And at the same time, Liz is in the room, across the room, and she says loose curls as I say loose curls. It says brown eyes, brown hair in loose curls. We both say it. And she drops the knife and walks out. And I'm like,
wow.
What? What happened? Where'd she go? Why did you say that? How'd you know that?
Yeah, that's weird, yeah.
But I can't go talk to her about it, so I don't.
Yeah.
So fast forward till my mission's over, and there was probably about 17 odd little things like that happened between me and her while I was on my mission. And
but never directly talked.
Never directly. We had spoken, because my companion was always there, her sister was there.
Yeah, never one-on-one. Yeah.
It was like, people have a hard time understanding that, but like when I do something, I'm super present.
Right.
I'm really here in this interview with you. We're having this experience, right?
Right.
I treat most of my life that way. So I was there to do my mission, and it was very hard to let that bird fly over my head with that building a nest.
Yeah.
Right? I get home from my mission, and right when I get home, there's a box on my bed. It was my birthday. And she had found out all the things that I love. There were some basketball shorts in there. There was a CD she had made me back when we made CDs for each other.
Oh my God,
right?
yeah.
Pat Green was on there, ironic tie back. But there's a 3-page letter that she had written. And in the letter, it summarized, it says, first time I saw you, time stood still. I knew you were my husband. If you feel the same way, call me. If not, I hope I never see you again. And if you know my wife, that's her stepping up and out like that is not her MO at all. Super out of character. But she sent the letter. I read this and I'm just like, I'm calling this girl.
Yeah.
Call her.
How ecstatic are you when you get this thing in the mail?
I'm like, I can't believe it. I literally, I didn't even know she even thought I was like, I existed, right? Let alone like, she had the same experience I did. Like, when did she have this experience? Like, what the heck? So I ended up calling her 7 p.m. And we ended up talking from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Wow.
12 hours. But you got to remember, it was 1 year of all sorts of weird pass-bys, drive-bys that we never spoke, right? So it was like, hey, remember that time in the room when you said loose curls? Like, what the hell? Tell me about that, right? Well, come to find out, when she was 14, and I'm 3 years older than her, when she was 14, she had the exact same dream of this little girl that looked just like her, dark skin, brown eyes, brown hair, but in loose curls. My wife has straight hair, so she knew it was her little girl, right? We go through all these coincidences, and it's just like, all right, well, when are we going to get married? That first talk, we were talking about wedding dates. We're talking about, and people think I'm crazy. We were crazy. Like both our parents, like, y'all are crazy. Like, this is quick. She ended up coming out to college at BYU. I went to an adjacent university out there that we were close, so we spent a lot of time. We dated for a whole year. Then we ended up getting married. And 4 months later, planned, we have our first child, and our first little girl, our first child is a little girl.
Oh, yeah.
She looks just like my wife, dark skin, brown eyes, dark hair with loose curls.
Oh my God, that's insane.
And my second is a little boy with the blue blanket, right?
Yeah.
From my dream. So I don't know if this is something that I've willed it into existence. I don't know if it's something that I just prayed for my entire life. But I fully, and I tell all my kids this, pray for your spouse. Pray that you will, and work like you are going to be the product that they want. When they see you, they need to think they're getting a steal of a deal.
Win.
A huge win, because you can't expect anyone to bring something to the table that you're not.
Right.
And expect to have a fairy tale. Expect a fairy tale. Like, I fully expected a fairy tale. I wanted it, and I got it. And it was way more than I had even imagined, right?
That's so unbelievable. And how long have you guys been married now?
15 years.
15 years, 4 kids.
4 kids.
And you guys have lived all over the country. She's been with you when you had nothing, and now you have a lot more than nothing.
Ride or die.
That's incredible, dude.
In fact, that's been the best thing, right? We talk about when we lost everything.
Yeah. She stayed with you through the hard times and all that. Yeah.
Not even stayed with me. I mean, she was the one that was like, here's your sword, here's your shield, go get us go get the dragon. Like, she was there. She's my wife. She's the reason I do everything. Everything. I can't think, sleep, eat. I can't do anything without thinking about her. And now I tell people this, that start this job, and like, hey, my wife thinks this is kind of crazy and da-da-da. First thing I think of is, damn, I'm so lucky. So lucky to have such a queen and such a badass bitch that will literally go and do the job better than I could do it. My thing is, if she went and did this, she'd be running a multi-billion-dollar company, right?
Right.
Super capable, like she could do anything she wanted to do. And she chose to believe in me. So when you start putting $7,000 and $10,000 a month in your wife's bank account, after you've been through things like that, those pennies mean so much, right? And now it's like, she wanted to have this birthday experience with no kids, so I've sent her here. She's been here for 4 days, and we're at the Ritz here in Dana Point, and the fact that I can provide this for her, I can't help but think about the time that we were packing up our house, getting evicted, and now look at you, babe. Like, thanks for staying down.
Ritz-Carlton for the week, yeah.
Thanks for holding it down.
Yeah. Dude, I love that. Holy shit. So what advice would you give to people out there in terms of what to look for in a significant other? Would you say it's less about the details and more about just being, like, elevating who you are?
Yes.
Praying about it more than anything? It's similar to the income thing, right?
It's all the same.
So you said, like, even for you don't focus, obviously, as a business standpoint, certain things, there's got to be goals and metrics. But in terms of personal income, when you were growing, you said you just focused on the finances, the spiritual, the physical, the social, all those elements.
Not finances.
And not financial.
Not finances, right? Yep, focus on everything else. Again, go be that person. Go turn yourself, go expect to be this end product, right? Go act as if you were gonna marry your dream person, right? Go act as if, how would you act? And people think about that too, like, money doesn't change anything, right? Getting married doesn't change anything. People think that, hey, once I get married to this person, I'm gonna change, I'll be a better person, or I'm gonna get this money and then I'll go give to charity. That's not how it happens. Like, either you start and put in habits in your life now where every dollar you get, even when we were broke, when I couldn't pay, I tracked every penny. That I'm a big believer in tithes and offerings and helping people, that even if I can't do it, and my wife, we feel very similar on this, give till it hurts or you're not giving, right?
Yeah.
And so
I believe that.
We do a lot of fun things. I've got a grandmother that lives, on the reservation. We're Comanche, and so being able to help support her and moving her off the reservation and taking care of her, like doing things that provide blessings in other people's lives, is a big deal for me. And if you remember back, we used to go do service projects every quarter.
Yes, I remember that. Clean up the beaches, homeless feedings. Yep, I remember all
feedings.
that.
Every quarter, I make all of my teams go do a charity project. And I think that I was already doing those things when we didn't have any money. I was still giving money. I was still documenting what I would give, and I tracked it. And I paid that debt. I felt like it was a debt that I owed to the Creator for all of my blessings. Even when I didn't feel like we were having very many blessings come, I still paid.
Did it ever feel like, when you were in your mid to late 20s and you were aspiring to do all these things and grow your business, did you ever feel like, shit, what if I don't get there? What if it doesn't happen? Because I think a lot of people deal with that, right? Whether it's sales reps or entrepreneurs or anybody in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, any age, they might feel like they're working towards something, and the benefit, it always kind of feels out of reach, right? Especially early on. Was there ever times like that where you had to hold the faith when nothing around you was seeming evident of things working out? I mean, what advice would you give to people who are in that situation now, maybe watching this or listening to this, who are maybe Brandon Holmes when he was 26, lost everything? You had your wife, 2 kids, you got evicted from the house, lost the house, dealing with the bankruptcy, the debt, all that.
Yep.
What advice would you give to somebody who's in that rock bottom situation right now about how to get out when they don't see any ways out?
A lot of times I feel that our society today has done 2 things. One is it's given us a very false concept of time, right? We feel like if we're not millionaires by the age of 21, we've failed miserably, right? Which is such a bad idea. Like, no one has that. And if you happen to be a product of some systemic wealth, like from generational money, don't take it and go become broke. Like, go get broke and go learn the steps to go be successful, right? Go through it. So I feel one is that our idea of how long we have to become millionaires is wrong, right? I mean, you've probably seen the stats. Go look it up. I mean, that most millionaires happen after the age of 50 years old, right? So realize that you've got a lot of life left, a lot of life. Like, you should be in your 3rd or 4th career or your 10th or 17th business by the time you're 40, right? So realize that you still got a lot of time. I wish I could go back and give that knowledge, wisdom to 25-year-old Brandon Holmes. Hey man, you got a lot of life coming. You've got a lot of businesses coming. You're gonna make a lot of money. You're gonna lose a lot of money. You're gonna make more money. Like, it's good. It's all part of the process.
Yeah, enjoy it and don't beat up on yourself so much when you're young.
Enjoy the process, right? Like, do not stop. Don't get lethargic. Don't get depressed. And that's hard. Don't do. But what I'm saying is that don't get caught up on something you can't control.
Victim mindset. Yeah.
That's right. Get controlling the controllables. Okay. The second thing that our society has done is it has enlonged our lives. Right. Our health consciousness. The caffeine infusion, which is bad or good. The health consciousness. The medical things that we have today. I mean, people used to, if we were dying at the ages of 50 and 60 like we used to, sure, be worried at age 30. We're living until we're 100, 110 years old nowadays. Like, by the time we get there, I bet they have a pill we can take and we're going to be 150, like, truly, right? So we're like, you're not even in your you're not even halfway, like, you're not even close. So that feeling of urgency, or that you're missing something, is a false sense of keeping up with other people.
Especially with social media.
Oh man, it's bad, right? Like, people drive cars, they live in houses, and people want to do that so soon before they've actually gone through the process, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
did you ever do that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
you got to go through it.
Did you ever lease cars or buy things you couldn't afford to pressure yourself to have to afford it? Did you ever do that?
So, 2 things. 1, yes. 2, don't lie to yourself either.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will say, hey, I'm going to do this so that I can push myself to go do it, when the true reason you're doing it is to look a certain way for individuals that you don't give a shit about anyway.
Right.
It's true. Like, it's really crazy how much people try to impress other people that they never even have met before, nor will they ever. And they probably don't even like the thing that they're doing, right? So realize that stay grinding, stay hustling. That's one thing I've never stopped working.
And you still knock doors now.
I still knock doors today.
And you don't have to necessarily if you didn't want to, right? You've knocked over 250,000 doors. You oversee agents. How many sales reps have you overseen? How many doors collectively would you say your teams have?
I get that question a lot, and I truly don't know. I know that I told you this, that in 2015, I went back. Someone had asked me the question for another interview, and I had done the math on it, and I had hit my 10,000 hours in people's living rooms selling at 2015. So that was 5 years ago, right? And I'd actually cleared that by a long shot. So
yeah,
I don't know, man. I think we've overseen almost 40 megawatts in the last 3 years of solar installations, which, I mean, that's almost like reforesting half of South America. I mean, it's like a lot of, we've done some good.
And sales volume? Over across all the companies, it's just, yeah.
Yes, it's just a lot of sales, man. A lot of doors knocked.
That's wild. Yeah. Now, let me ask you this in wrapping up. What are the elements that make a great salesperson? This is particularly for people who've knocked on the doors. I know at one point I was the top sales rep in the office when I worked with you, and you gifted me this bad boy here.
Love it.
Remember this?
Oh yeah.
Gifted me this. I remember it. This was my first work bag, and I was hyped.
Can't believe you still have that.
Yeah, man. Well, because I'm a big guy on nostalgia, and when I see that, I always remember, oh, I'm the best sales guy. I'm the best, so that was an anchor tool. So I appreciate that.
My man.
But for people watching, what would you say makes a great door-to-door salesperson? And of course, there's a metaphor here for life. But I remember you used to tell us like 100 doors a day. Everybody had a different number. They'd try to get 50 no's or 100 doors or X amount of time actually in conversations. But for people out there listening, particularly door knockers, but again, everybody could take it for the metaphor in their own life or business. What does it take to be a superstar salesperson, a superstar sales rep, and get out there and get hustling and make your dreams a reality?
Great question. First first myth to dispel is after 15 years of overseeing thousands of sales guys and gals, is that you don't have to be a certain type of person to be a great salesperson. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Be like, well, that's just not my personality. That's probably one of the largest cop-outs that's out there that is completely not true at all. I've seen salespeople be the exact antithesis of what you would assume a great salesperson to be, turn into the best salesperson that's out there, right? So it's not just one type of personality that turns you into or makes you a great salesperson. Like me, my first week, 2 weeks, I didn't sell anything, right? I probably would have not been a good salesperson. So it's knowing that it's not about who you are, it's about what you do, right? It's about the work you decide to put into anything you're gonna do. So just do it. Just get out there and get going. Okay? That's the first thing that always comes up. But after all that time, the absolute best advice that I could give if you want to become a successful salesperson and I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I feel that in our society, in interacting with people, what's happening right now with social injustice, what's happening right now with wealth inequality, what's happening with everything that's going on in the world would be solved if we could get this one training out to everybody. And I kind of have like some private initiatives that I really want to do. And that is listen. Start listening. If people could listen to other people, you will be a great husband, you'll be a great father, you'll be a great friend, you'll be a great partner, you'll be a great salesperson. People have so many preconceived notions and ideas. Like while people are talking, they're already thinking about what they're going to say. They're not listening, right? And it's such like people think, well, that's of course, that's not like a secret. That's not good advice. But if you break this down on a psychological level, everyone's core desire in life is to be validated, right? The only way you can truly validate someone is by listening to them, right? And hearing what it is that they are saying. And if you could be the person, the salesperson, the friend or the partner or the spouse that listens, understands how to communicate by validating them, there is no fight. There is no issue. In the world today, I think that we are all saying the same thing. We are. No one's listening to each other though, right? Let's take Black Lives Matter. I know it's super relevant. People always get antsy talking about this, but I have a different lens as a white person, having spent and grown up and spent my summers on the reservation, having a Native American grandmother. I have been the kid that been beat up for being white with my cousins that are Native, right?
Yeah.
They're full-blooded.
Yeah.
We have the same grandmother, but I'm the one that gets picked on, right? A little bit different. So for me, you hear this Black Lives Matter right now. And that's like, why are you saying it? No, always. This is always an issue, right? But if we can't listen to what's being said, it's right now, there's a lot of things that are causing inequality. But people feel that if you say Black Lives Matter, I'm not even listening. All I hear is, well, my life matters too. So I'm going to say all lives matter. And the opposing party can say, well, they want to feel valued too, right? But it's not what's happening. It's not what's relevant right now. It's like saying it. I heard this joke one time. It's like, on 9/11, do you wear a T-shirt that says all buildings matter?
No, yeah.
It's funny, but no, you don't, right? Like, absolutely not. Like, you're not gonna walk around and say all buildings. No, it's because this happened to these buildings that we will never forget, right? We're just talking about getting things equal. That's fucked up, right? Like, that's bad. Like that, it should be so far the other way. Like, how do you give people more value, feel more value, right? So if I could listen and be like, man, you're saying that Black Lives Matter because for years and all of time, that this group of individuals have been targeted by a group of people that we're supposed to protect, and they've been killed at numbers that are not even fathomable. And man, of course Black Lives Matter, man. Yes, they do. And then back to me, hey man, just because right now that we are a targeted group or building that got knocked down or got shot or what, that doesn't mean you're not as valuable, man. This is a relevant thing right now because of what's happening. You definitely are valuable. Oh, you're saying I'm valuable too? Yeah. Then yeah, and that interaction turns into a beautiful experience, right? Instead of it being I'm watching people go to blows on this like right now, where if people would just listen and validate people at their core issue, and that's all sales is. Sales is listening, validating, and moving on. And that's what people really need in this world right now, man, is people to listen. Last funny story, and then I'll shut up. And I'm gonna validate you. You're like, man, you keep rambling.
No,
man.
no. I love this. This is good. That's why I do this, man. I love these questions. I love these answers.
This was, and my wife, she even remembers this. I woke up one morning and I put on, and I do trainings on this, and it's actually a sales technique called Feel, Felt, Found.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I remember that. I remember you taught us that. Yes.
And there's also a follow-up technique called the porcupine. Okay. Now, principally, what the porcupine does, and the cool part is how many people we've trained to do this. The bad part is how many people we've trained to do this. Everyone needs to learn how to do this, right? All the porcupine is that you hear what someone says, you restate it so they can hear what they're asking and make sure it's their true concern. Here's a crazy stat for you. 99, and this isn't like, you're like, whenever time you say 99%, nope. 99% of the time, if you can restate someone's concern, you don't even have to answer the actual concern. You just need to let them know that you understand what their concern is. It actually removes the concern completely. It's like magic.
I remember that. I remember in solar, when we would go knock doors, you would tell us that, and then we'd bring up a concern. Like say someone, like I think I shadowed you one time, and then someone was like, oh, I don't know, or they brought up their doubts. And then you did that, and then you were like, so if I'm understanding correctly, it's this?
You did it, you remembered it.
And then she was like, she's like, exactly. And you're like, perfect. So our guys can come out here next Tuesday or Thursday. Just let us know what's the best. And she went along with it, and then it worked out, yeah. But it's wild to think that way. And most people think sales is like this trickery, manipulation thing, when it's really just validating what people are feeling inside and then meeting those needs.
It's just good communication.
Yeah.
And I can't believe you remembered that, man. That was big time.
I do. It's hard to forget experiences knocking doors. And actually, I do want to ask you this before I forget. Of course, you've had adventures knocking doors. Do you have any quick one or two or three of the crazy stories before we wrap up here? Because I'm sure the audience would love to hear that. Because I remember the craziest stories, and people would always tell stuff. So you must have some gems.
Man, I don't even know what's legal. Like I've got so many. I tell stories people don't believe it's even happened.
Give us like one or two right now, Ro.
What rated do you want?
Let's go all the way, dude. Yeah. Rated R, X, whatever. I think I don't know if it was you told me you got a gun pulled on you or something like that.
Plenty of guns, tons of guns.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean that's not even gonna make my list.
Yeah.
A gun pull doesn't make the list of the top 1,000. Like that just happens a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's.
Any like crazy celebrity encounters or any kind of like weird things or anything like that?
So, I mean, good heavens, 15 years I've got. So celebrity encounter. So I go sit on an airplane, okay? And I travel a lot, so luckily I get bumped to comfort class this time, right? Not full first class, so you usually don't think you're gonna run into anyone in comfort, right? So I sit down, and there is a big dude, and I'm not like a big dude, but I'm not little either, right? And when you get on an airplane, you need to establish armrest dominance immediately.
Right.
Or you're not gonna get it the rest of the flight.
That awkward thing, yeah.
It's gotta happen pretty quick, right? So it starts to, so I get on there, and this guy's not having it. He's full on my side. And I make sure he knows, I'm aware that this isn't going to be, we're at least sharing this thing, big guy. And he's a big guy. And when I finish the story, you'll understand how big. But I'm not going to back down. We were from New York to LA.
Oh, wow. It's like
I'm
a
not
6 hour
backing
flight.
down.
Yeah.
So I kind of bump and he bumps back and I bump all the way off with the forward. I don't know if you ever know. It's a move. It's the forward move, right?
We were trying to remember something or something.
And
check the phone.
I'm like, shoot. But I knock, so he does one of these, right?
Yeah.
And he fell hard. Like he was resting on it. He was in the same thing. And he's like, are you kidding me? He gets up, he stands up, and it's his wife on the other side. And I'm like acting like I didn't see it. Like I'm just like completely ignoring it. So he gets his wife, and she's a tiny thing. And he gets her to sit in the middle. He just, switch me, this guy's an ass. Like he switches, right? And I'm like, that's right, bitch, switch. Like, that's you, I dominated that. And I still haven't looked at him. No eye contact. And flight halfway through, she says something, and I say something, and I start talking, and she kind of looks familiar, but I can't like tie it together. And I look back, and it is undeniably 2-time heavyweight world champion Cain Velasquez.
No way.
Straight up Cain Velasquez. And I'm like, oh, like, I'm gonna actually just play this one. Like, I have no idea who he is.
Yeah.
So his wife's like, oh, you probably know my husband, Cain. I'm like, actually, I don't. Like, I just completely played it like I had no idea, right? And she's like, oh, it's interesting too. Most of the time when celebrities feel like you're not a fan or whatever, they're way cooler to like want to be friendly, right? Like they're just being treated like anyone else, right?
Normal, yeah.
I learned that with Tony and these other people back in the day, young. So anyway, we start talking, we hit it off. And his wife, Michelle, she's a sweetheart. Like, she's super nice, she's super cool. And so we talk about solar, and we get into it, and sure enough, I end up, she's like, yeah, come out and get solar on our home. I'm like, we'd love to have it. Like, so I end up selling her on the flight.
Yeah.
And he still hasn't woken up. And you know how we talk about make sure that both spouses are the
there
same.
to make a decision.
Not only were they not there, but I straight up got in an arm wrestle with Cain Velasquez, right? So he wakes up and she jumps in. She's like, he's super nice. He's really cool. Like, she like totally does a great job for me.
Yeah.
We end up, he's like, all right, man. Like, so we start laughing about it, about how
the arm thing,
I kind of made him tap out on the arm. No. So we end up getting cool. We fly out. I end up going out to their home. We've done solar on their home now twice. We did the first time, we did their pool house, and then we did an add-on for Cain and Michelle. So that was a really fun, funny experience. What I still say that I got the better of Cain, but when he stands up, like, the man is
humongous,
massive.
Yeah.
Massive. Like, no two shakes. But so that was a fun celebrity encounter. X-rated story.
Okay.
And we'll leave you with this one.
Let's do it.
Should I? Yes, part of it. So I bring out a couple of young kids. They're like 18 years old, right? My brother and his brother. You even know who this is.
Okay, let's hear it.
I'm not gonna say his name, I'll tell you after. Because he knows it, and he's gonna laugh that I shared the story. So I drop him off, and we are in Augusta, Georgia, south of Atlanta, like south of, out in the middle of nowhere, like, not Augusta, Hepzibah, south of Augusta, like backwoods, crazy, right? I drop him off. We don't hear from him for all day long, all day. And it's time to pick up, and I don't hear from him. We can't find this kid. He's 18. His parents like trust me, and he's not in his area. He's nowhere to be found. Well, he calls me, and he is like, hey, B, I need you to come get me. Like, where are you? It's like 10:30 at night. He's like, I'm down some back road. I don't know where I am. Like, come find me. I'm like, and we had no GPS on our phones at this time. Like, we had no way. Like, I'm like, get to your hood. He's like, I'm not even in hood. I had a person take me like to a referral. I don't know where I am. I'm like, get to like somewhere. What's going on? I don't know how I can't even like remember, so I don't want to like try to think of it. Somehow I find him, and it took like 2 hours. So it's like almost midnight, okay? Well, I finally get him, and I'm like, dude, and he is shook. He is shook up. I'm like, dude, what happened? Where have you been? He is in this neighborhood, knocking on these doors. These guys bring him in. He ends up selling this house. They say, hey, we have another home out in the middle of nowhere. We want to put security on that house too. This was back when we were doing security. Great. Hop in the car. They drive over out there in the middle of nowhere. He walks in, and he says when he walked in that there was just lines of cocaine on all the tables. There was naked women back. I mean, it was a trap house outside of Atlanta, Georgia, straight up. And he walks in, and they shut the door, and they lock it behind him, and the two guys stand in there, and they like trap him in there. He walks in and sits down, and he says he has this experience where, like, the women are walking out, cocaine is on the table, like they pull out a gun and like tell him that he's got to like get involved in the activities, the festivities that are happening inside this house.
Yeah.
And he's 18, like this nice little white boy from Utah,
Yeah.
right?
Just finished his mission or something.
He's not even gone yet.
Oh my goodness.
This was like his prep, and he tells me that what happened is he sits right on the couch, and these two guys come sit next to him and like put their arms on him, and they like make him like watch everything, and he is like losing it, right? Like strippers and all this stuff's happening. Well, he says that one of the guys passes out. So the other guy gets up and runs in, and while he runs in, he says he stands up and he gets trucking it, and he jumps through a window. Like jumps, like
to break the window.
Breaks the window. 2 stories. Hits like the lower eave and rolls off and lands on the ground, gets up. They come out, chase him, grab him again. They catch him because he's got no car. They catch him because now they think he's going to go tell the cops, like location and everything. I don't know what they were thinking, like when they grabbed the kid to begin with, like,
what did they expect? Yeah.
They bring him back. He gets stuck back in it again. They put him in a room. Something happens where one of the girls felt bad for him. She like grabs him and like lets him out the doggy door and like gives him a cell phone. He runs, he's using her burner phone to call me on. And like,
oh my
I
God.
catch him, pick him up, and he like, I'm not even telling you the X-rated parts of the story.
Yeah.
But I'm just like sitting there like, you will never tell your mother about this experience. Yeah. So sorry about this experience. No, so anyway, that's like probably one of the most, we still joke every time we see him, like, hey, remember about Atlanta? He's like, shut up, man. Like,
still knocked doors, or did he get out of the business that night?
No. He came out here and he did solar with us in LA, so he was in our office together.
Oh my God. We'll find out after the interview.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
That's
so
insane,
anyway,
man.
There's been some crazy
Dude,
trap house experiences before.
I love it. Well, before we wrap up, we always play this quick little game, Brandon, so I appreciate you sharing all this. The last game is called First Things First.
Okay.
The way the game works is I'm going to rifle off 10 words or phrases, and then you just tell me the first word or phrase that comes to mind. Make sense?
Well, this is going to be dangerous.
Yes. The only rule is that you can't repeat yourself twice.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just going to list stuff off, and then you just tell me, like a relation game, the first word or phrase that comes to mind. All right, first word is solar.
Sunshine.
The brotherhood of knocking doors.
Eternal.
Money.
Temporary.
Liz and the kids, your family.
Everything.
Your biggest regrets looking back.
No regrets.
The best advice you would give yourself, knowing what you know now, to the younger version of you who is looking for answers.
Keep hustling.
Your future.
Endless.
United Energy.
Phenomenal.
Passion.
Everything.
And then the last one, you ready? What you hope people who watch this interview take away from this and apply to their life when it's finished.
One word?
A word or phrase. Feel free to riff on this one.
Yeah. That no matter the way you fall, no matter the way the cookie crumbles, that your outlook, you're creating things first spiritually in your brain, whether it's success, love, life, the lack thereof, whatever it is, if you can visualize it and see it, that you can achieve it no matter what. No matter what happens or pops up, that's just a temporary thing to prepare you for the goal, to prepare you for your next phase of life. It's like that rock that you always push that never moves. You're not pushing to move the rock, but by the time that you're done pushing, you realize that your arms are strong, your back is strong. The rock was never supposed to move. You were supposed to turn into the rock.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. It's really been a privilege.
Dude.
It's getting to know you as a friend, a mentor, and now a guest on the show has been awesome, man. So thanks for hopping on. Where
Hey,
can people find you if they
hold
want
on.
to get in touch?
This bag.
Yeah.
You know how you stuck out to me with this bag?
Let's do it.
When I gave you this bag?
Talk to me.
Because at the time, I don't know if you realize this, but I was the director over about 300 sales reps, right?
Right.
This office that we had was just something I did to make sure I stayed in the game and stayed relevant, which is another piece of my success, is making sure you're always 10 toes to the grind. But you came to me, and I didn't, like, whether or not I remember certain reps, there's probably half the guys and gals I don't ever remember. But you asked me for a favor.
Yes.
And I felt like the way you asked this favor was so ballsy
Yeah.
that I knew you would be successful because you were willing. Like, it was like the first time I like engaged with you and you asked me for this, and I remember saying to myself, that guy's gonna go take, earn, or get anything he wants in life. And then that's where I was like, I'm gonna make sure this guy sees this thing through. And
I appreciate that. Is it cool if I share what it was?
yeah, it's your story. I didn't want to impose.
Yeah,
but.
so that was actually when I first started in solar.
Yep.
I was totally broke, and I just straight up told you, like, straight up, I'm down to do it, but I have no money to pay my rent. Yeah. And I was short like $600 rent, and I told you, like, you can just take it from my check or whatever. And no hesitation, no nothing. Right there on the spot, you sent me the money. And I remember, because I never like asking for money, particularly then, and no questions asked. And I remember you showing me that loyalty. And for the first time in my life, someone helped me. And I had just met you. Like, that was pretty recent. So
first time that I remember, like, I didn't know who you were until you asked that.
Yeah, and you did it. And as soon as I remember, I hit rent bonus that week and every other week thereafter, because I remember it wasn't just a thing to me. I wanted to prove to you that I, earned the keep. And I remember I paid you right away as soon as I got the cash. And I'll never forget that, man. So thank you so much.
Whether or not you pay me back, man, I just knew that, and I don't give that to everybody.
Yeah.
Like, people ask me for money all the time.
Right.
But the way in which you asked me on the first visit, I'm like, this guy's either like super ballsy, right? Or he's gonna go get what he needs to make it happen. And then that was impressive about you. So to see you from that moment, to see you now, I'm just grateful to have been a part of your progression and your story, and I'm just blessed to know you, man.
I appreciate that, man. Likewise, and it's awesome now to share your story on the platform.
Love it.
Where can people find you if they want to get in touch with yourself or United Energy?
Yeah, so social media platforms, at B Holmes, at UNTD Energy, UNTDenergy.com. All the different platforms out there, but
awesome,
come
man.
run with us.
Very cool. Awesome, Brandon. Well, thank you so much.
My man.
Until next time, live strong, everybody, and live with passion, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Thank you so much for enjoying this video, and if you found this content valuable, uplifting, and inspiring to take your life and your business to the next level, then I have some exciting news for you, because the Passionate Few Academy officially launched our brand new on-demand training that you can access absolutely free at www.tpfacademy.com. Right there, you'll learn the #1 way to grow your personal brand or business brand online fast. The same way I've learned from interviewing some of the most successful people on the planet right here on the show who've done exactly that. So again, don't forget to check it out, www.tpfacademy.com. I promise you'll be blown away. And also, don't forget, there's 3 ways you can connect with me further. #1, you can text me absolutely free at the number on the screen right now and send me your most pressing life, business, or branding question, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Number 2, if you'd like to be interviewed on the show, you can actually apply right now in the description below and apply to share your incredible story, brand, or business right here with an audience of potentially millions of people, the same way we've helped experts, entrepreneurs, and authors just like you. And don't forget, that opportunity comes with the ability to partner with us and help feed 1 million people through our partnership with Feeding America. Again, you can click the link in the description below titled Interview Application to find out more. And last but not least, number 3, if you'd like to get consulting from our team and work with you to help you grow your personal brand or business brand, no matter what industry you're in, we can do that by simply filling out the questionnaire in the description below titled Consulting Application. And if our team thinks that you'd be a great fit, who knows, you may just be invited to work with us to help you take your business to the next level. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for enjoying this video. Make sure to smash that subscribe button, turn on post notifications so you never miss an episode. And until next time, live strong, live with passion, and I'll see you in the next inspiring video.